Well, the self-storage industry is definitely in some uncharted territory this year in 2020. Let's talk about what I think it may take for you to be successful in the business, running your self-storage business for 2020 and beyond. My name's Mark Helm, and I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Self-Storage Quick Start Academy. And what I do is I support the small investor who wants to get in the self-storage business or who wants to grow their self-storage business, strategically do so in a way that creates true wealth and a fulfilling career. And this has definitely been a year of firsts in the self-storage industry on many levels. And for many of us, we've been through another recession, economic downturn, and a pretty severe one back in 2008 through 2010 or 12 as we went through it in this industry. And what I'm noticing about myself and about a lot of the people I talk to and about a lot of what I'm reading is we're comparing this time, this challenge, to the last challenge, and we're using the same mindset and we're using many of the same strategies, and I hear the same things being said that were said about the last economic challenge we were in. But this is a different time, different circumstances, and I think it's going to require new strategies and new ways of thinking to succeed in this business in 2020 and beyond, and that's what I want to talk about over the next few episodes. So before we get in it, let's just take a view of where we are now, and let's look at some of what I think the market forces are that are in play now that are maybe a little different than the 2008, 2012 kind of time period. And we'll look at the internal and external forces. Let's look at the internal market forces in this industry right now. And the big one that's in play that probably wasn't in play much or at all in the last economic challenging times is the oversupply in many, many markets and many, many sub-markets. I naively thought, and my wife constantly tells me how naive I am, but I naively thought that it's possible with the amount of information that's out there right now that our industry wouldn't necessarily have to go into an oversupply or a drastically oversupply part of an economic cycle. In fact, I stole a term that I heard from Jernigan Capital called soft landing, and I wrote about it a few years ago, and I talked about how it's possible with the amount of data we have, knowing you can look at almost any location in the country and determine whether that sub-market's in equilibrium, oversupply, or undersupply. And with this kind of information out there, there's really no reason why we should put more self-storage in an oversupplied or a sub-market in equilibrium, causing it to go into oversupply. And I naively thought that as an industry, we would be able to do that. But I've been proven wrong. I've seen square footage coming clearly overbuilt sub-markets, even markets that I'm in and invested in, people coming behind me like, why in the world would they be putting up more self-storage? Can't they see that it's an oversupplied market? So maybe I was naive talking about soft landings, but this overbuilt in many markets and sub-markets is a market force that we're dealing with right now that we weren't dealing with it very much in the last recession. And some other differences is in the last recession, with self-storage performing so well, there was a lot of money and capital, primarily from Wall Street, publicly traded REITs, but a lot of institutional money started flowing into self-storage during the recovery because of how well self-storage performed in the recession. So with all this institutional money coming in, it has kept sale prices high, cap rates low. But another factor that I don't hear talked about a whole lot is with all these institutional players in the space now that weren't there before, how we innovate and how we operate our businesses is evolving at a very fast pace. Even though it still is pretty much a mom and pop industry, with these institutional buyers really only representing between 20 and maybe 22% of the market out there, the effect they've had on how they run their businesses has upped the game for all of us. We're having to have specialized knowledge and employ innovation that before we never had to do to stay relevant in the marketplace. This is a big difference between what I see market forces at play now than the market forces at play in the last economic challenging times. And if you look at the external market forces at play right now in 2020, the big one's COVID. We certainly weren't dealing with a world pandemic at the time. We were dealing with a world economic crisis, but we didn't have a pandemic on top of it. Here's an interesting photo. The last pandemic we've had on this scale was in 1917 through 1919. And even back then, we were dealing with wearing masks, social distancing. Some things don't change a whole lot. Look familiar? You know, with the stay-in-place orders that were in effect in the first part of the year, and then we opened up, and then we began to close down in certain parts of the country. Today, for example, there's a facility I really want to go see, but it's in a state that has really spiked in the COVID-19 because of how that particular state government's running it. And if I go visit that facility, which is what I need to do before writing an offer on it, what's going to happen is when I come back, I'm quarantined for 2 weeks. And I certainly don't want to be quarantined for 2 weeks in my bedroom. Believe me, my wife would ensure that quarantine. I think she might actually enjoy it a little bit. But so we've got forces at play that were never in play before. So if we use the exact same mindset and the exact same strategies we used before, I don't think that's going to carry the day right now, because it's a different time, different challenges, different market forces at play. Yes, self-storage is outperforming most other real estate sectors today, like it did in the last recession, but there's nothing guaranteeing that that's going to continue to be the way. And what I'm noticing now that I didn't notice back then is, depending on what market we're in and what sub-market, there are wide swings, wide variables in the performance of this asset that I didn't see that wide difference in the last economic challenging. So I've been looking at our company and what do we really need to put our attention and our focus on to ensure that we survive this year and the next few years that are going to be coming up. And basically, I've got 5 areas that I'm taking our company to really deep dive in, hone these in, own this, so that we can survive and thrive in the upcoming year or two as we carry on with the facilities that we have and the facilities we're going to be putting in service. So let me share with you what they are, and I'm going to spend the next few weeks doing a deep dive into some of them. So the first of the 5 key areas we're focusing on is effective and cost-efficient online marketing. Back in 2008, 2010, this was not something we had our attention on. Yes, we had our attention on marketing, but it was very different market forces at play back then. Online marketing is key today to survive 2020 and beyond. The next area that we're really focused on is effective and cost-efficient automation. Just because something is there that you can use to automate doesn't mean you should, but there are certain automations that you probably do need to put in place that aren't there now to have you stay relevant over the next 2 to 3 years. So we're really putting our attention on that facility by facility. We'll do a deep dive into that. The third area that we are really putting our attention on and upping our game is effective and cost-efficient revenue management strategies. I've talked about this over the past few years, but we're really changing what we're doing and going to be doing a deep dive into this and coming up with some different strategies than we've used in the past. The fourth key area that we're going to be focused on is enhancing the customer's journey, the customer experience when they interact with our company. It's never been more important. We're competing in markets where the customer experience, they have some very sophisticated tools at play that will enhance that customer experience. And as a small investor running a business, we've really got to put our attention on that and know what our customer is experiencing dealing with us and how that compares with our competition. It's never been more important than it is today. And then something that we always have our attention on, but are really doing it in a different manner, we're going to talk, this could be the difference between survival or not, is efficient and cost-effective operational expense control management. And I'll share with you how we're doing that and what we're putting our attention on as we go through this process. So, in my opinion, what we did in 2008 through 2012 was great. We can learn on it, but we've got to build upon it. If we just relate to what's happening now in this challenging time to what we did before, I think that's a formula for not surviving, or at least not thriving, in the upcoming balance of this year and the next few years. So we're going to take these next few episodes and do a deep dive into these 5 key areas. So I look forward to being with you on this journey as we explore and go deep into what it's going to take to survive 2020 and beyond. And I look forward to doing this with you. My name is Mark Helm. I'm the author of Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage, and I'm the creator of the Storage World Analyzer. It's literally a tool we use every day. So as we're mapping out some of these strategies we're going to be talking about, we run it through the analyzer to see how these potential changes may impact the ongoing revenue stream, returns, and how will it affect our benchmark numbers that we already have in place from using the Storage World Analyzer. You can use Excel, but this is a great tool I really invite you to explore if you're not using it. StorageWorldAnalyzer.com or Creating Wealth Through Self-Storage. Go to the Storage World Analyzer tab. Thank you. I look forward to being with you next week as we dive into effective and cost-efficient online marketing. I'll talk to you then.